Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to KSP. So, I've got a little bit more science than what I had before, and that's because I did some missions around Kerbin to collect a little bit of extra science. This time, I'm actually going to try and do a landing on the moon. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to fail to try and do a landing on the moon, as you guys will soon see. So, yeah, this is going to be fun. I ended up changing the mission to a low fly pass of the moon and was able to collect a ridiculous amount of science. So I may do a low fly pass of Minmus as well. I'm not 100% certain. I know. I would like to try landing on the moon. My problem is I never seem to bring enough fuel. So I'm gonna have to design something different in order to actually land on the moon, like I have had done before. Which is a really weird sentence. So yeah. So this mission went catastrophically wrong and then fairly decent. See, my biggest problem is the best way to do this mission is to have at least one scientist on board, because with the full launch of the game, the scientists can now reset the experiments, which is fantastic because that means you don't have to have a lab section just to reuse experiments. So you can take one set of experiments up and just have a scientist on hand. The problem is you can't just have a scientist, because if you have the scientist and if you're in career mode, see, again, I haven't tested this for the kind of basic mode that I'm in right now, which is kind of in between the sandbox and career mode, where all the stuff is unlocked. It's just I need the scientific points in order to actually physically get it, not science and money, or not, it doesn't cost me any money to build these rockets, which is fantastic. Yay. And I don't have to worry about upgrading and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm not 100% certain if it works in this mode, but I know for sure in career mode, if you only have a scientist, the scientist does not get the stability control or the SAS ability if they're in the pilot seat, because they're not a pilot and they really don't know how to do that sort of stuff. So that's why you kind of have to have a pilot and a scientist. So that's why you see that little lander can at the bottom of the rocket, is because that lander can is what I'm using to hold my scientist, or at least it would be if I had my scientist in the lander can. I accidentally got them switched, and my scientist is in the pod and my pilot is in the lander can. I'm not 100% certain if it makes a real big difference. I think so long as there's a pilot on board the ship, it can still function. I don't know. But the main thing is I just need some way of taking more than one Kerbal into space at a time, so that way I can have my scientist and my pilot at the same time. And since I don't have the larger capsule module yet, I don't have a way of holding more than one, so I have to do it like this. So it is a little bit cumbersome and tedious, and I think that's gonna be the next thing that I'm gonna get. Because, man, that would make life so much simpler. Because, of course, the biggest problem is weight. All of these things have weight, and all the weight requires fuel in order to move it, and that all takes away from the fuel that I need to get down to the moon and back off the moon again. I think, the numbers I was looking at, when I get to the moon, I need to have, I want to say it was, well, no, because I'm going to lose probably about a couple hundred meters of delta V just getting to the moon. I mean, just getting to the moon's surface. So yeah, that's. I said fuel has always been my problem when it came to landing, which is one of the reasons why I liked having the stability control, because the not the stability control, the RCS, the reaction control. Because it meant I didn't have to worry about making sure to have enough fuel to stop any horizontal movement. I only have to worry about having enough fuel to stop the vertical movement, because I can then use the RCS to stop the horizontal movement, which makes life so much simpler. But again, it does mean that you have to be really kind of creative when you're building your rockets. So here you see the actual orbital lock, and you'll see in a minute what I'm trying to do. Again, I'm checking to see how much delta V I'm going to need. See, I always like to run like kind of a good little test to see how much fuel fuel I'm going to need in order to actually physically get back to Kerbin. Because if I can figure out how much I need, then I know how much I can use getting down to the planet. And I've just realized at this point that I'm not going to have enough. So I was like, you know what? To heck with it. And we'll go ahead and try and land this thing anyway. Yeah. That... yeah, that was a bad idea. So, I mean, look at that. It sucks up so much of the delta V just getting to that point. Now, see, if this was something like Kerbin, I could use the atmosphere to slow myself down and thereby save myself some delta V, but it's not. The moon doesn't have an atmosphere, or at least its atmosphere is so low that certain mountain ranges will actually pierce through it. So I'm actually using the RCS here to try and help slow myself down. So, and that's one of the advantages of the RCS, is it gives me that extra fuel system to be able to use to perform tests, and I mean to like help slow myself down and to kind of help aid the engines a little bit. Yeah, so my biggest problem, I was obviously coming down way too fast. See, I waited way too long to start firing the engine. Because, of course, I was like, I want to wait as long as possible. And I was using the RCS, and yeah, yeah, boom. Which is why I quick saved here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually adjust the orbit on this. Get it about as low as I can get it. And do some low passes, because I noticed that when I was collecting the science, it said high over the moon, high over moon surface. I have the little box somewhere, or high fly over moon or something like that. I don't remember. And I was like, aha, so if I can get into a low fly or just a normal moon flight, then I can collect science from there. So here you see me getting my scientist out to collect the data and reset the experiments. Fantastic. Love the idea. The only thing is, of course, you have to actually get your scientist out of the capsule in order to do so, I think. I want to say I tried doing that without getting her out, and it did not bode well. Also, strangely enough, it seems like it stores all the data across the entire module, which is kind of strange, because one of my scientific experiments, and I don't remember which one it was, I really wasn't paying attention to it, it said I couldn't keep the data, because of course you only have so much space to store data on these rockets. One of them, it said I couldn't keep the data because it was, I already had it, or I didn't have enough space or something like that, and it was really weird, and I don't know what was going on there. So, so yeah, it's now time to make the return trip. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm going to be getting even closer to the moon than what I was before. So I decided to do one more quick run of science collecting to sort of maximize how much science I got out of this little trip. And yeah, this actually turned out way better than I expected, because I expected to land this thing. See, yeah, there it goes. It just says, like, it can't keep that data for some weird reason. I don't know why it can't keep it, but it can't keep it. So I ended up having to dump some of that data, which was really sad. Really, really sad. Because, I mean, that was probably, I don't know, but I mean, I ended up with like 300 or 400 science or something like that. And it was like 400 science from all this. So, I mean, that could have probably put me up to 500 science. So, yes, I highly recommend this game because it is insanely fun. It will teach you a lot of things about physics and rocket science, or it won't teach you anything. You'll just blow everything up. Yay! Yes, all of this stuff is way, way harder than it looks. And I challenge anyone watching this who thinks they can do better than me to actually physically try. Because I may not be the smartest person on the planet, but I actually enjoy doing this stuff. This stuff is like kind of right up my alley. Because this game is actually very relaxing, despite being excruciatingly stressful. Right? Such as going to the moon, figuring out you don't have enough fuel to actually do what you want to do, and then realize, okay, well, now I'm in trouble. Because, guess what? You're out of fuel. So, yeah, and that's basically what happened to me right here, is I ran out of fuel. So what I did was I used my RCS to try and push my periapts down into the atmosphere of Kerbin, which would have been nice to be able to do on the moon, and then use the atmosphere in conjunction with the RCS to slow myself down enough to where I actually end up coming in on a landing trajectory to the planet Kerbin. The downside to this is I have no control over where I land. Yes, this thing has landing gears, but the landing gears are useless if I land in water. And of course, I don't want this thing to come down too hard or too fast that ends up breaking something and risks blowing up the entire rocket. So, one more little quick save there. Or wait, no, maybe that was the pause. Yeah, I think that was just a random pause. But either way, we end up getting what we need to actually get ourselves into the atmosphere. We kind of skipped off it a little bit that first time, but it was enough to bring our apoaps down far enough that worst case scenario, the RCS should be able to take care of anything, any of the major problems that we might run into. Also, I noticed that some of the scientific experiments, when I was doing the random collection, so like the barometric pressure sensor, and especially stuff like the goo container and the science lab, they don't acknowledge the other biomes on Kerbin. So if you're flying over Kerbin, it takes the reading from basically all of Kerbin. So you have, I would assume, low fly, a high fly, and all that, but it doesn't recognize. So like, because the one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to collect science from the North Pole, which is the tundra, and it doesn't recognize the tundra as a biome, so I couldn't collect pressure readings from there, which does kind of seem a little bit weird because the pressure readings there would be different from everywhere else. So like the desert would have a different biometric pressure reading, the North Pole would have a different pressure reading and all that. So, but as you guys can clearly see, everything ended up working out fairly much into my favor, where I actually made landfall, which is what I wanted to do because, you know, I have landing gear. That's what I wanted to do with them. So I'm going to actually go back to the science section. I'm going to collect the big rocket stuff that will allow me to build a bigger rocket, and take care of that and several other things. I don't fully remember what all I purchased, but you guys should be able to see them there. And next time, we should be able to go to the moon. If not, we're going to do a flyby of Memphis. So I'm done for the day, guys. And to that, I'm going to say